Hi everyone, this is Captain Smith, otherwise known as Miss Whitham. 118 years ago, on April 10th, 1912, Titanic set sail from Southampton, England to New York City on its maiden voyage. It was not an unsinkable ship, as most people thought. The Titanic was a very grand ship for lots of reasons. I made a list here. You can look over them. The most important thing to remember is that it had all brand new things like electricity, elevators, and even the third class accommodations were considered very fancy. This is an example of the first class dining. Only the first class passengers were allowed here. You can see that everything's fancy, from the chairs to the tablecloths to the carpet to even the decorations on the ceiling and the windows. The Titanic was made to impress even millionaires that were sailing on it. This is an example of the second and third class dining rooms. On the left, you see an actual photograph. You can see they still have tablecloths, nice chairs, decorated ceilings. And on the right, you see a computer-generated image of a third class dining room. You can see they ate more in a cafeteria style. No tablecloths, long tables, simple chairs and tables. But again, even the third class passengers thought this was extremely nice. Here are the elevators and the grand staircase. The grand staircase was considered to be the most fascinating part of the ship. You can see it's got the glass skylight here. This part of the ship is featured in the movie Titanic, if you have seen the movie. For those of you that have studied the Titanic with me and you were either Jack Phillips or Harold Bride, this is where you worked, in the wireless Marconi room. The Marconi machine was a brand new invention. Used to send out messages. You can see they used these to type out Morse code and write the message down, and sometimes they'd even put it in a tube and send it off through this vacuum tube to where it needed to be. This was a brand new feature on this ship. Of course, the swimming pool and the gym were only for first and second class passengers, but not at the same time. If first class passengers were using it, then second class passengers were not allowed, and the other way around, because they didn't like classes of people mixing. Here's the Turkish Bath. It is only for first class passengers. Get a massage, sit in a steam room, and James Cameron has found that this part of the ship is actually still intact at the bottom of the ocean. It wasn't very damaged. He took cameras in there and he saw the decorations on the walls, and this lattice work here was still intact. Here's a first class cabin. This is where the passengers slept. The first class passenger cabins were more than one room. They were very fancy, the best of everything. Second and third class cabins were obviously not as big. On the left, you see bunk beds, a desk, and a little couch to sit on in the second class passengers. For the third class passengers, there were 4 to a room. They slept in bunk beds. This is not a toilet. It's a little sink for people to splash their face with, to wash their face if they would like. And down at the bottom here, I made a note that the third class passengers were also called steerage because they were considered just as important as the luggage. Most of you that have studied the Titanic know about the dummy stack. The designer, Thomas Andrews, wanted his ship to be the most impressive ship of all time. So he added a 4th smokestack, even though it didn't do anything. Smoke from the boilers only came out of the first 3 smokestacks. The 4th one was just there to look awesome. Here's more information on the ship. You can see the 4 smokestacks. Here we have the lifeboats, which there were not enough. These are the antennas for the Marconi machine. The back of the ship is called the stern. For those of you that have seen the movie, this is where Jack saves Rose from falling off the ship when they meet. The propellers that make the ship go. We'll talk about that in a minute. The bridge, where the captain or the first or second officer would command the ship and someone would steer it. The crow's nest is where Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee were looking out for icebergs. The bow of the ship is the front of the ship. That's from the movie where she puts her arms out and she yells, "I'm flying, Jack!" And of course we have the crane, which lifted cargo into the ship, such as cars and things like that. So how did Titanic move? We have these stokers here. The stokers were the ones that shoveled coal into these giant boilers. The boilers burnt the coal and gave the ship energy for its electricity and to help it move. This is an image from the movie Titanic, and you can see the water is coming in. The stokers knew that they wouldn't survive when they learned the ship was sinking, but they kept going, hoping that the lights would stay on and other ships would see them and come and help.